What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle. I am your host, Tyler, licensed realtor here in the Okanagan. Wanted to come at you today with a little bit of my opinion on what I think housing affordability is going to look like. We got BNN, or I believe here. We'll see here in a moment. Just talking about their outlook on housing affordability under the new Liberal government. They're pushing a lot of stuff or whatever, but I don't ever think that spending is going to reduce prices, especially not when regulation and all that stuff has to do with it. I think the problem is that they're not focusing on the right type of builds, and they keep on stressing new industries versus the optimization of the ones that already exist, right? So for the prefabbed home, for example, right, like there's $25 billion worth of investment that could be potentially put into affordable homes when it comes to prefabs and whatnot, and that's great. But it's when we're already so far behind, to try to optimize the new systems, not necessarily going to be the right way to go. I don't think another outlet's great, and there will be an opportunity there, I'm sure, but I don't think it's the solve all for it. But hey, that's just me. A lot of what I'm seeing right now is just these developments that seem to come in, a lot of duplexes, a lot of townhouses. It's all density. It's how do we get a big enough house in the small enough area that it is practical for a family to buy, but it's still affordable, right? Like, it's land's expensive, right? And especially desirable land. So it's a really tough one. And with the cost of building just skyrocketing, right? Like, I don't know what the average cost of building is nowadays, but the last time I looked into it, like a year or so ago, like it was over 400 square feet, like, or $400 a square foot, right? And that's just to build. Like, you got the land and everything on top of that, right? Like, anything new, like, you're over $1 million easy. Like, it's pretty wild to see how bad COVID really just messed everything up, right? Like, just the cost of goods, materials, like all that lumber, all that stuff went up, and it just never changed, right? A lot of people don't also talk about all the softwood tariffs that have really hurt that industry as well, too, right? So now the quality of that, because the lumber quality's even gone down. So you know who knows how much that actually has implications towards that, but it all affects everything. So yeah, just a little bit of a spiel from me. Like I said, it's very much in the government's interest to just let the free market go crazy. Like, you just got to let people build what they want to build, right? And that's going to help hopefully fill that gap of the missing kind of middle, right? Because there'll be a lot of people that will hopefully go into building a subdivision that can be actually affordable, not necessarily affordable. I mean, where I'm at in the Okanagan, like, if you're talking about affordable brand new house, like, you're going to be close to 800 plus if you got a yard and all that type of stuff, right? So it's not an easy task from this point onwards, right? The best possible thing I think that could happen for housing affordability would be prosperity for all Canadians, right? Get everyone working well, get the economy rolling, get jobs created, make the industry provide the possibility for people. So anyways, let's take a look here at what Bloomberg has to say
The new Liberal
about the
minority
same thing.
government has promised to address the housing affordability crisis as one of its first moves. But questions remain about how quickly that housing can come and what it will take to get there. Joining us now to talk about this is the CEO, one of Canada's major housing developers, Michael Waters. Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So the last Liberal government tried to deal with the housing crisis, as you know, a lofty goal to build millions of homes. What do you think has been the biggest holdup to really gaining some ground on that?
Well, housing is a very capital-intensive business.
Especially
To
now.
deliver homes on the scale that Canada needs And the gap is significant, Morella. Last year, Canada delivered 260,000 homes, which was, a large volume. It just barely surpassed the previous peak in 1974 of 257,000 homes, but still 60,000 homes short of what we need to meet demand, and far short of what we need to fill the significant deficit in housing that already exists. Capital is critical, and so we need to find ways to attract capital to the sector to allow us to build more homes. There are a number of other barriers, of course.
Capital. I agree in some ways, but I think he should definitely be talking more about regulation. Like, capital's one thing, but spending money, and this is the mindset that a lot of people have when it comes to the liberals and how they get out of these issues, is that if you spend enough money, eventually the problem will solve itself. That's not the case. You have to reduce the amount of costs for people, not increase capital. There's plenty of capital around there. The real estate industry is worth trillions of dollars. Like, it's freaking ridiculous that they would even go to that length. Like, I firmly believe that the problem is over regulation. There is way too much bureaucracy and there's way too much process to deal with, right? Like, there's way too long to get permits approved. There's too many re-inquiries. There's this thing, there's that thing. It's expensive, right? It's expensive and time consuming. That's the biggest issue.
Regulatory barriers, the levies and fees and taxes that are imposed on new housing, and myriad other issues. We have
GST.
studied the Liberal platform with great interest. There are a number of factors or initiatives outlined in that platform that we think have merit. There are other areas where we think the industry will look for money. Other initiatives from government to help us.
Okay, so let's talk about what you saw when the Liberals were out campaigning, now from the new PM, that you think could make the biggest difference. What are the one or two initiatives or promises you saw that went to you, okay, that could work?
Yeah, well, obviously, both the Conservatives and the Liberals pledged to eliminate the GST on certain forms of new housing. So certainly we welcome that initiative. We think that could.
Conservatives promised that. Liberals are only promising it for first-time home buyers, so that really doesn't do anything.
Make a big difference for sure. We look at other incentives. They did talk about the multi-unit residential building or MERB program.
Once again, it doesn't tackle the right problem, especially in my area. There is not enough single-family dwellings.
Facilitating that program from the 1970s, which certainly I think bears a lot of interest and merit. So there were a number of initiatives that they talked about, we think, that could be very helpful.
When you mentioned the 1970s initiative, how did it work? What was offered at the time for the building of these multi-unit buildings?
Well, basically, they allowed an enhanced level of tax depreciation on the construction of new multifamily buildings. And, and that really spurred the development of a significant amount of apartments at that time. In fact, as I mentioned, the previous peak for home building in Canada was in the mid-1970s.
Try to get somebody
and
to
we
want to
entered
build
a long
condos
period
in the
of decline following some changes to tax policy and rent control and rent regulation.
So give me one place in Canada that has a good condo market right now. Because I don't really know any of them. There's no real demand for that type of thing anymore. The whole thing with condo markets is that condos were always investment properties and vacation homes. It's not feasible to invest in rental properties as much anymore, so less capital is going into that development. Therefore, it's not worth nearly as much. Less people want it. There is no demand for 600 square foot condos anymore. And that's one of the biggest problems, is that they think that creating multi-unit dwellings is going to help tackle the issue. Like, people don't want to live in shoeboxes. I don't understand why this is such a hard concept to understand. Like, it takes a certain type of person to want to live in these laneway houses and stuff like that. Like, the average person doesn't, even the ones that come to Kelowna, like, a lot of the people that come to the Okanagan, they're not younger people that are just trying to get started in a random city. There's a reason for them to be here. There's family, there's, you know, schooling, there's, it could be work, but for the most part, people find a way to live here, especially now. It's expensive to live here, right? So it doesn't make sense to continue to build these types of homes that nobody has demand for.
And you think about that period of time, Canada's population has nearly doubled. So, really, we have a significant period of gap between housing supply and housing demand.
Are we building the right kinds of homes? We're seeing the condos, right? These smaller units that have come online that people aren't picking up. Are we building the right kind of homes in this country?
Well, I think, developers and builders are always seeking to meet customer demand, and demand from customers has is obviously hugely impacted by what's affordable. And the last several years have seen affordability erode to levels we hadn't seen in generations. And certainly the last year, as home prices and the housing market has softened, we've seen affordability improve a little bit, but it's still very, very poor. In fact, in March, RBC estimated that over 55% of average household income was required to fund the cost of home ownership. And long-term trends would suggest that figure should be closer to 40% or even lower. So what this has meant is that customers have been pushed to smaller homes. You talk about condos, certainly in cities like Toronto, developers have tried to meet the customer demand by building denser forms, smaller condo units to meet that customer demand. It's whether that is what is the right kind of housing is an open question. But I think what Canadians need is homes of all descriptions. We need homes that can accommodate families, certainly students and young professionals, and every sort of home in that spectrum.
I do want to ask you about the availability of people who are skilled to build the homes. We've had a problem with that for a number of years. I know some of the provinces have offered programs to young people, right, to get into these programs to help build homes or do construction of any kind that's needed. What's your take on whether we have what we need to get some of these homes built, or do we need to fast track that even more?
It's a big concern. I mean, we talked about capital as a barrier. We talked about red tape and fees and taxes as barriers, but certainly the availability of skilled trades is a major problem. More than 20% of Canada's skilled trades are older than 55. And so obviously retirement is on the horizon for many of them. We're just not replacing them at a level that we need to build the homes that Canada
they're paid
needs.
like crap.
And so I think there is an opportunity there for policymakers to look at trades training and the funding of training, to look at certification programs, immigration policy, and other things to try and boost that pool of skilled labor that can really help Canada build those homes that we need.
Michael,
we don't have enough houses for the people that we have. So let's bring in more people to build us new homes, even though we don't have the housing for them. What is this? What is this? Like, are people actually insane? Like, this is crazy.
Water's amount of time, sir. I got to leave it there. Michael is the CEO of Minto Group. Thanks very much for sharing some of your time.
Okay, well, the video is over anyway, so I could go back to my rant. Yeah, I've been playing Oblivion, by the way, so that's why you see some random videos like that. That's so annoying. I can't wrap my head around this whole mindset of bringing people to solve a problem of having too many people, it's so weird. It's so weird. So anyways, that was pretty much a lot of what I think I had to say. Affordability comes in excuse me. Ooh. Affordability comes in a lot of different types of issues, and that's once again the biggest problem with our housing quote unquote crisis. The reason why it's a crisis is because there's so many different reasons why we're in the position that we're in. So yeah, that was Bloomberg's take on it. I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't think that capital is the issue. I think it's red tape, and I think the trades that are coming down the line soon is definitely an issue. I used to be a tradesman myself. I left the industry because I didn't like how it was treating the people in it, right? It just, tradesmen, particularly electricians, didn't get paid very much in the Okanagan. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.